The morning was heavy, cloaked in a thick layer of gray clouds, as if the sky itself was mourning the loss of Donata, our beloved grandmother. I stood alongside Valentina, my younger sister, at the edge of the cemetery, watching as the pallbearers carefully carried her casket, draped in white flowers, towards the freshly dug grave. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and the stifled sobs of family members. I could feel the weight of sadness pressing down on me, but there was something else, a creeping unease slithering beneath my skin. "Do you think she's really gone?" Valentina whispered, her voice barely audible over the rustling of leaves. I turned to her, searching her face for signs of hope, but all I saw was fear mirrored in her wide brown eyes. "I want to believe that she's at peace," I replied, trying to sound reassuring. "But I don't know, Val. She always had a way of making her presence felt." A shiver ran down my spine as I recalled the countless times Donata had seemed to know things before we even spoke them. It felt wrong to think of her in the past tense. As the ceremony dragged on, I lost focus, my mind wandering to memories of her warm embraces and the stories she would tell us by the fireplace. It was in those moments that I felt a flicker of something, perhaps an urge to connect with her one last time. The final words of the priest faded into the background, replaced by a low whisper that seemed to echo through the trees. My name, soft and inviting. "Did you hear that?" I asked, glancing at Valentina, who was staring wide-eyed at the grave. "Hear what?" she asked, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Nothing," I said, shaking my head. I brushed it off, attributing it to the overwhelming grief of the day, but deep down, a sense of dread began to settle in my gut. After the funeral, we returned home to our ancestral house, a place steeped in traditions and shadows. The atmosphere felt dense, as if the house itself was mourning alongside us. I walked through the familiar corridors, each creak of the floorboards echoing the memories of happier times. Yet today, the air was thick with something else, something unsettling. "Emiliano, do you feel it?" Valentina's voice broke through my thoughts as she followed closely behind me. "Feel what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what she meant. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, a sensation that I couldn't shake off. "Like we're being watched," she replied, her voice trembling slightly. I hesitated, but nodded slowly. "Yeah, I do. It's like the house is alive." I glanced down the dimly lit hallway, shadows flickering at the edges of my vision. There was something, or someone, lurking just beyond the reach of light. As I approached Donata's room, an inexplicable pull drew me in. The door creaked open, revealing a space frozen in time, filled with relics of her life. I stepped inside, feeling a strange energy enveloping me. The air was cooler here, and I could swear I heard the faintest whisper of my name, floating through the stillness. "Emiliano." The voice was soft, yet insistent. I looked around, half expecting to see her sitting in her favorite chair, knitting or reading, but the room was empty. My heart raced. "Emiliano!" The voice called again, more urgently this time. It felt surreal, as if she were beckoning me to uncover something hidden. I scanned the room, my gaze landing on a small, ornate object glinting in the corner. I walked over, drawn to it like a moth to a flame. It was a locket, intricately designed with a floral pattern etched into the silver. I picked it up, the cool metal sending a shiver through me. As I opened it, I was met with an image of Donata as a young woman, her eyes sparkling with life. Instantly, I felt a rush of warmth, a connection to her that transcended the boundaries of life and death. "Emiliano, what did you find?" Valentina asked, peering over my shoulder. I turned to her, holding the locket tightly in my palm. "I don't know, but I feel connected to her." I paused, the words catching in my throat. It's like she's still here with us. Valentina's eyes widened as she reached out to touch the locket. "Do you think she's trying to tell us something?" I started, but my thoughts trailed off as I felt a sudden chill sweep through the room, sending a wave of unease crashing over me. My connection to Donata felt strong, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something darker was lurking just out of sight. As night fell over San Miguel, the air thickened with an unsettling quiet. I lay in my bed, the shadows of the room stretching ominously under the faint light of the moon filtering through the curtains. My mind was a whirlpool of thoughts, swirling around the funeral, my grandmother's haunting absence, and the eerie sensation of being watched. It was as if the walls themselves were alive, breathing slowly, echoing the sorrow that permeated our home. I closed my eyes, hoping sleep would come to me, but instead I found myself slipping into a vivid dream. The world around me transformed into a dark, foggy landscape where everything felt surreal. I stood in a shadowy version of our ancestral home, the once familiar rooms now twisted and distorted. The air was heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't comprehend. Emiliano, a soft voice broke through the thick fog, drawing my attention. My heart raced as I recognized it instantly. It was my grandmother, Donata. She appeared before me, her figure ethereal and shrouded in mist, her once warm smile replaced by an expression of urgency. "Abuela?" I called out, my voice trembling. "What's happening?" "You must listen to me," she urged, her voice echoing like a whisper in the wind. "I need your help." "Help with what?" I felt a deep chill run down my spine as she stepped closer, her figure flickering like a dying candle flame. Are you in danger?" She shook her head, the sadness in her eyes piercing through the fog. "It's not about me, Emiliano. It's about our family. You must uncover the truth." Before I could respond, the scene shifted, and suddenly I was standing in the living room, the walls pulsing as if they were alive with whispers. I could hear faint echoes, words I couldn't quite decipher. Panic surged within me, and I stumbled backward, crashing into what felt like a wall of shadows. "Emiliano!" Valentina's voice pulled me back from the abyss. I opened my eyes, gasping for breath. My heart pounded in my chest, and I felt disoriented as I blinked into the darkness of my room. "Just a dream," I murmured to myself, but the weight of her words lingered, wrapping around my thoughts like a thick fog. I sat up, my mind racing, and glanced at the clock. It was just past midnight. I couldn't shake off the feeling that something was terribly wrong. I needed to talk to Valentina. I threw off the covers and crept down the dimly lit hallway, my bare feet silent against the cold floor. As I reached her door, I hesitated for just a moment, then knocked softly. "Val?" I whispered, half hoping she was awake. A moment later, I heard her muffled voice. "Emiliano? Is everything okay?" "I had a dream about Abuela," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "You won't believe what she said." "Come in," she urged, and I pushed the door open. Valentina was sitting on her bed, her hair tousled and eyes wide with curiosity. "What happened?" she asked, leaning forward eagerly. I took a deep breath, recalling every detail. She said she needs our help, something about the family, and uncovering the truth. Valentina's expression shifted from curiosity to concern. "I've been having strange dreams too. It's like she's trying to tell us something." I nodded, feeling the weight of our shared experiences pressing down on us. "We have to figure this out. There's something in the house, something she left behind. We can't ignore this." "Let's look for it in the morning," she suggested, her voice steady despite the fear etched on her face. "If there's a clue, we'll find it together." As we spoke, a chill swept through the room, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the house itself was listening, waiting. I glanced toward the window, where the moonlight flickered through the curtains like a distant memory. "Val, do you ever feel like the house is alive?" I asked, my voice trembling with the weight of the question. "Alive?" she echoed, her brow furrowing. "What do you mean?" "I don't know," I admitted, feeling foolish. "It's just sometimes it feels like the walls are watching us, like they know our secrets." She nodded slowly, her expression contemplative. "Maybe they do. Maybe Abuela left something behind that can help us understand what's happening." As we sat in the darkness, a resolve began to form between us. We would uncover the truth, no matter how deep we had to dig into the shadows of our family's past. The whispers in the night beckoned us, and together, we would answer their call. As dust motes danced in the slanted beams of sunlight filtering through the window, as I stumbled upon Grandma Donata's old leather-bound diary. The moment I opened it, a musty smell wafted up, mixed with a hint of something floral, like the scent of her beloved garden. My heart raced as I flipped through the pages, the delicate handwriting scratching against my mind like a distant memory yearning to surface. "Emiliano, come look at this." Valentina's voice interrupted my focus. She stood at the doorway, peering over my shoulder. "Is that Grandma's diary?" "Yeah, it is," I replied, brushing a layer of dust off the cover. "There's something strange here." She stepped closer, her eyes widening as she scanned the pages. What does it say? I squinted at the faded ink. It talks about rituals and a pact with dark entities. The words hung in the air like a heavy fog. Valentina's brow furrowed and she bit her lip. What kind of rituals? I turned the pages carefully, feeling a chill creep down my spine. It mentioned sacrifices made in exchange for protection. My voice trembled slightly. I don't know, Val. This feels wrong. Let me see, she said, leaning in. I handed her the diary, and she began to read aloud, her voice steady but filled with curiosity. To protect the Reyes family from the darkness that lurks beyond, a pact must be honored. Sacrifices are the price for safety. Sacrifices? I echoed, a knot forming in my stomach. What kind of sacrifices? Listen, she said, her finger tracing the text. It says here that the Chosen One must willingly give themselves to the darkness. That's the only way to break the curse. I felt a wave of nausea wash over me. This can't be real. Grandma wouldn't have done something like this. Valentina closed the diary, her eyes searching mine. But what if she did? What if all those strange things happening in the house are connected to this? As if on cue, a sudden chill swept through the room, and I shivered involuntarily. I don't want to believe it, but I've been feeling so strange, like I'm being watched. I can't shake off her presence. Maybe we should perform a protection ritual, Valentina suggested, her determination shining through her fear. If there's something dark in the house, we need to confront it. We need to protect ourselves. Are you sure that's a good idea? I asked, hesitating. What if we make things worse? We can't just sit here and do nothing while everything is falling apart, she insisted, her voice firm. If Grandma left us this diary, it's because she wanted us to know the truth. We owe it to her to try. I sighed, knowing she was right. The air in the house felt thick and oppressive, as though the walls themselves were closing in on us. Okay, let's do it. But we need to be careful. Valentina smiled, a mix of fear and excitement dancing in her eyes. We'll figure it out together. We have to. I picked up the diary again, my hands trembling slightly as I flipped through the pages for instructions. There's something here about the items we'll need. It looks like we need candles, some herbs, and a personal item from the family. Valentina nodded, her expression serious. What about the medal? The one you found in Grandma's room? I nodded slowly, remembering the warmth of the medal in my palm. That could work. It feels like a connection to her. Then it's settled, Valentina said, determination firming her voice. We gather the items and perform the ritual tonight. We can't let whatever is haunting us continue. As I looked out the window, a dark cloud passed over the sun, casting a shadow across the room. I felt an inexplicable sense of dread, but also a flicker of hope. Together, we would confront the darkness that had lingered in our family's past. As we prepared for the unknown, the weight of our grandmother's legacy pressed heavily on our shoulders. Yet we were ready to face it head-on. The air was thick with tension as I stood with Valentina in the shadow of our ancestral home. It felt like the very walls were holding their breath, anticipating the arrival of our estranged Uncle Roberto. I had only heard stories about him, rumors of his dark past and unresolved rivalries with our grandmother, Donata. But now, as we waited, I could feel a knot tightening in my stomach. Do you think he'll really come? Valentina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She clutched her hands together, her knuckles white with anxiety. I don't know, I replied, trying to sound more confident than I felt. But if he does, we need to be ready. He has no idea what's been happening since Donata passed. A sudden rustling sound broke the stillness, and we both turned toward the driveway. A figure emerged from the fog, tall and imposing. Uncle Roberto. His presence felt like a storm cloud rolling in, darkening the skies above us. He looked older than I had imagined, wariness etched into the lines of his face, but there was an undeniable fire in his eyes. Emiliano, Valentina, he greeted, his voice smooth yet laced with a hint of something I couldn't quite place. Was it malice or merely arrogance? I see the old house is still standing. How quaint. Uncle Roberto, I said cautiously. What brings you back to San Miguel after all these years? He stepped closer, surveying the house with a critical eye. Family matters, of course. I've come to claim what's rightfully mine. Valentina exchanged a worried glance with me. What do you mean? She asked, her tone defensive. You know very well what I mean, he replied, a smirk creeping onto his lips. Donata left behind a legacy, and I intend to ensure it's shared fairly among all heirs. Is that what you call it? I shot back, anger flaring in my chest. You mean to tear our family apart over money and possessions? His expression shifted slightly, annoyance etched into his features. This isn't just about money, Emiliano. It's about power, influence, things your grandmother never understood. She was blind to the real threats that lurked in the shadows. Threats like you? Valentina interjected, her voice strong despite the quiver in her hands. You've been gone for years, and now you return, claiming to care about family? It doesn't add up. Roberto's eyes narrowed, and for a moment I thought he might lash out. Instead, he chuckled darkly. You too are naive. You think whatever is haunting this house is simply a figment of your imagination? This family has secrets, and I know them. What do you mean? I pressed, curiosity mingling with dread. What secrets? He stepped closer, the air around us growing colder. Donata made a pact, a dark one, and I know the details that she never shared with you. Secrets that could change everything for the Reyes family. Valentina's eyes widened. You're lying. She would never. Wouldn't she? Roberto interrupted, his voice sharp as a knife. I've seen her do things in the name of protection, sacrifices that might seem unthinkable to you. She kept you safe, but at what cost? You never questioned her motives. Why do you think she was so obsessed with Emiliano? My heart raced. The connection I felt to Donata, the dreams, the whispers, could they have been a part of this twisted legacy? What are you implying? I demanded, my voice shaking with a mix of fear and anger. Roberto leaned closer, his eyes gleaming with a malicious light. I'm saying she used you, Emiliano. You were her favorite, but you were also her pawn, and now that she's gone, the truth must come to light. You may be the one who has to pay the price. Valentina stepped in front of me, her posture fierce. We won't let you manipulate us, Roberto. You think you can come here and take what's ours? You're mistaken. Roberto laughed, a cold, humorless sound that echoed through the yard. You're brave, Valentina, but bravery won't shield you from the truth. This house is filled with darkness, and it's drawing closer every day. You'll need to choose a side before it's too late. As his words hung in the air, a chill swept through the yard, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. The shadows of our family history loomed large around us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the precipice of something far more sinister than I had ever imagined. The tension in the room was palpable as the family gathered for what felt like an inevitable confrontation. I could sense the electricity in the air, a harbinger of the chaos that was about to unfold. My heart raced as I sat beside Valentina, our eyes darting between the familiar faces that had suddenly turned alien in their hostility. The living room, once a sanctuary filled with laughter and warmth, now felt like a battleground. Roberto, you can't just waltz back into our lives and demand what doesn't belong to you. My Uncle Raul's voice boomed, breaking the uneasy silence. His fists were clenched, and his face had turned a shade of red that indicated he was barely holding his anger in check. Roberto leaned back in his chair, a smirk plastered across his face. And why not? Donata's gone, and that means her secrets and her belongings are up for grabs. You all are too weak to handle what she left behind. His words dripped with disdain, and I could feel Valentina tense beside me. Secrets? You think you know everything? Valentina shot back, her voice steady despite the quiver in her hands. Donata protected us for a reason. You don't know the first thing about our family legacy. Oh, but I do, Valentina, he replied, his tone mocking. I know about the sacrifices made in the name of protection. I know about the dark corners of this family that you all refuse to acknowledge. I could feel my stomach twist into knots at his insinuation. What did he mean? I glanced at Valentina, who wore a determined expression, but I could see the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. We had been digging into our grandmother's past, but had we truly unearthed everything? Enough. Raul slammed his palm on the table, rattling the glasses. You've been gone for years, and now you come back with your demands? You think we'll just hand over the family estate to you without a fight? Roberto leaned forward, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. This isn't just about the estate, Raul. It's about power. It's about reclaiming what's rightfully mine. Donata kept us in the dark, and I intend to bring everything into the light. The room fell silent as his words hung in the air. I could feel the weight of generations pressing down upon us, a legacy fraught with secrets and shadows. "What are you talking about?" I blurted out, unable to contain my curiosity and fear. He turned his gaze toward me, his eyes narrowing. "Ah, Emiliano, the favorite grandson. You must be so proud of your connection to her," he sneered. "But you don't know what she did to keep that title, do you?" "What are you implying?" I shot back, my heart racing. "Donata loved us, she protected us." "Protected you? Or controlled you?" Roberto's voice took on a mocking tone. "You think her love came without a price? Those whispers you hear at night, they're not just figments of your imagination. They're remnants of the deals she made, and now, with her gone, those debts are due." I felt a chill run down my spine. The whispers, the shadows, I had always considered them remnants of grief, echoes of my grandmother's love. But what if there was more to it? Valentina placed a reassuring hand on my knee, but I could see the fear in her eyes. "Stop it, Roberto," she interjected, her voice rising. "You're trying to scare us with tales of darkness to get what you want. We don't need your lies." He chuckled darkly. "Lies? Oh, Valentina, you'll learn soon enough. Knowledge is power, and the truth can be a terrible weapon." After the meeting, as the family members dispersed, I found myself lingering in the heavy silence of the living room. The air felt thick, suffocating. Valentina and I exchanged worried glances, both of us grappling with the weight of Roberto's words. "Do you think he's right?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "About the shadows? The sacrifices?" Valentina shook her head fiercely. "No, Emiliano. We can't let him get to us. We have to focus on Donata and what she wanted for us. We have to find out the truth ourselves and not through his twisted perspective." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at me. What if there was more to our grandmother's story? What if her legacy was darker than we could bear to imagine? The shadows in the house felt heavier than ever, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were standing on the precipice of something far more sinister than family rivalry. As shadows flickered in the dim light of the ancestral home, an unsettling chill wrapping around me like a heavy cloak. Valentina and I had spent most of the day digging through old boxes and dusty shelves, trying to piece together the fragments of our grandmother's life. The walls seemed to breathe with every creak, whispering secrets I was not sure I wanted to uncover. "Emiliano, come here." Valentina's voice cut through the heavy silence, pulling me from my thoughts. I turned to see her standing near the ornate fireplace, where a faded photograph lay half buried under a pile of old letters. I approached her cautiously, my heart pounding. "What did you find?" I asked, my curiosity piqued despite the unease gnawing at my insides. She picked up the photograph, brushing off layers of dust. "Look at this." Her voice trembled slightly as she handed it to me. The image was of our grandmother, Donata, standing alongside a man I barely recognized, our Uncle Roberto. They were both young and vibrant, a stark contrast to the hollow memories I held of them now. But what caught my attention was the symbol etched in the corner of the photograph, a twisted design that seemed to pulse with a dark energy. "What is that?" I whispered, feeling the air grow heavier around us. Valentina squinted at the image. "I don't know, but it looks familiar. I think I saw something like this in the diary." My blood ran cold as I recalled the words she had read to me earlier, about a pact and dark entities. Do you think it's connected to the ritual?" "I don't know, but we need to find out." Valentina's determination sparked a flicker of courage in me, but I could still feel the weight of dread settling in my stomach. Suddenly, the temperature dropped further, and an unsettling presence washed over me. The air crackled, and I felt as if someone was watching. "Valentina," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Do you feel that?" She nodded, her eyes wide. "It's like something is here with us." I glanced around the room, half expecting to see Donata's familiar figure materializing from the shadows. Instead, all I could sense was a suffocating darkness. Just then, a low, haunting whisper echoed through the room, sending chills down my spine. "Emiliano, did you hear that?" I gasped, my heart racing. Valentina clutched my arm, her grip tight. It sounded like her, like Grandma. "I need to know what she wants," I said, my voice trembling as I turned back to the photograph. "We have to confront this." As if responding to my resolve, the photograph seemed to shimmer, and I felt a pull in my chest. urging me toward the attic. "The diary!" I exclaimed, urgency filling my tone. "We need to read more from it." We raced to the attic, the old wooden stairs creaking under our weight. The air grew heavier with each step, thick with dust and memories. Once inside, Valentina opened the diary, its pages yellowed and fragile. "Here," she said, her finger tracing the words, "it talks about the ritual and the sacrifices." My heart sank as I read aloud, "To protect the family from the darkness, a sacrifice must be made. The chosen one shall carry the burden of the pact." I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. What does that even mean? Valentina's face paled. "It means someone has to pay the price for her protection." Suddenly, the shadows in the corners of the room began to twist and turn, a dark figure emerging from the depths. "You've disturbed my rest." The voice was low and menacing. I couldn't see its face, but I could feel its anger. "Who are you?" I shouted, trying to mask my fear. "I am the keeper of the pact," it hissed, the air growing thick with its presence. "And you must choose, sacrifice or be consumed." "Emiliano, we have to get out of here!" Valentina screamed, her eyes darting around the room, searching for an escape. "No," I shouted back, feeling a surge of defiance. "We can't run. We have to confront this. We owe it to Grandma." But as the figure loomed closer, I felt my resolve begin to crumble. The weight of my fears pressed down on me, and I could hear the whispers again, louder now, echoing through my mind. "Emiliano, Emiliano." In that moment, I realized that the true battle was not just against the entity, but against the legacy of our family. The darkness that threatened to consume us all. I had to find the strength to face whatever lay ahead, for the sake of our family and for the memory of Donata. The air in the library felt thick with dust and the weight of forgotten stories as Valentina and I sifted through the rows of books. Sunlight filtered weakly through the grimy windows, casting long shadows that danced ominously across the wooden floor. I could still hear the echo of my grandmother's voice from my dreams, urging me to uncover the truth. "Emiliano, look at this," Valentina called out, her voice breaking the silence. She stood at a shelf labeled Local History, pulling a large leather-bound book from its resting place. The cover was cracked, and it emitted a musty scent that made my stomach churn. "What did you find?" I asked, stepping closer to inspect the book. She opened it with care, revealing yellowed pages filled with handwritten notes and illustrations depicting old rituals. My heart raced. This could be the knowledge we needed about the pact that loomed over our family. "Here," she said, tracing a finger along the passage. "It talks about a ceremony to break a pact made with a dark entity." Her eyes widened as she continued reading. "It mentions that one member of the family must be sacrificed to sever the ties." A chill ran down my spine. A sacrifice? No way. There has to be another way. I shook my head, unwilling to accept what she was saying. "Emiliano? Listen," Valentina insisted, her voice firm but filled with concern. "If this is what it takes to free us from Donata's torment, from whatever is haunting the house, we need to consider it." I took a step back, feeling overwhelmed. "You don't understand. What if it's me? What if I'm meant to be the sacrifice?" The thought gnawed at me, and I clenched my fists. "Don't say that," Valentina replied, her voice trembling slightly. "We won't let it come to that. We'll find a way together." I looked into her eyes, searching for reassurance, but I saw the same fear reflected back at me. What if I can't refuse it? What if I'm doomed? "Emiliano, we will figure this out. We can't let fear control us." She closed the book, determination etched on her face. "We need to perform the ritual of liberation during the full moon. It's our best chance." I nodded slowly, my mind racing. "But how do we even begin? I mean, what if we anger the entity further?" Valentina took a deep breath, her expression softening. "We have to prepare. We need to gather the items mentioned in the book. It says we'll need candles, salt, and something to represent the family's bond." "What do you think it means by that?" I asked, my curiosity piqued despite my anxiety. "Maybe something like a family heirloom or a photograph? Something that symbolizes our connection." I felt a flicker of hope. "We can use the medallion I found in Grandma's room. It belonged to her. It has to mean something." "Exactly. That could work. But we have to be careful. We need to perform the ritual correctly, or we could make things worse." I could feel the weight of our decision pressing down on us. "Do you really think it will work?" That we can free our family from this curse? Valentina looked thoughtful for a moment, then replied, I don't know, but we owe it to Grandma to try. She sacrificed so much for us. We can't let her memory be tainted by this darkness. I swallowed hard, the resolve in her voice igniting a fire within me. Okay, let's do this. We'll gather everything we need and perform the ritual. We'll face this together. As we left the library, a sense of purpose filled the air, but the fear of what lay ahead clung to my thoughts. I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the truth was more terrifying than I could imagine. What if the sacrifice was indeed me? The thought haunted me, but I pushed it aside, focusing instead on Valentina's unwavering determination. Together, we would confront the past and uncover the secrets that had bound our family for generations. We had to be brave, for the sake of our grandmother, for our family, and for ourselves. The night of the ritual arrived, cloaked in the eerie light of a full moon. The air was thick with tension, a palpable energy that sent shivers down my spine. Valentina and I gathered in the dimly lit living room of our ancestral home, the walls adorned with shadows that seemed to watch us with bated breath. I could feel the weight of our family's history pressing down on me, and it was almost suffocating. Are you sure about this? Valentina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. She was pacing back and forth, her hands wringing the fabric of her sweater as if trying to squeeze out the anxiety that clung to her. I nodded, though uncertainty gnawed at my insides. We have to do it, Val. If we don't, we'll be trapped in this nightmare forever. Donata, she needs us. My voice quivered, but I steeled my resolve, reminding myself of the apparitions that haunted my dreams. I could almost hear her calling out to me, urging me to finish what she had started. We set up the ritual in the center of the room, placing candles in a circle on the floor, their soft flicker casting ghostly shapes around us. I could see Valentina's hands tremble as she lit each wick, and I wished I could take away her fear. What if we're making things worse? She asked, her eyes darting to the door as if expecting someone, or something, to invade our sanctuary. Trust me, I replied, trying to inject confidence into my voice. We have to confront this darkness. It's the only way to free us. As we arranged the candles, I felt a cold breeze sweep through the room, extinguishing one of the flames. I glanced at Valentina, and we exchanged a look of shared trepidation. The atmosphere shifted, becoming heavier, almost oppressive. Did you feel that? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Yeah. I swallowed hard, my heart racing. It's like she's here with us. Just then, the remaining candles flickered wildly, as though responding to an unseen presence. I could feel the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Let's do this, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. We recited the incantations we had found, our voices merging into a chant that echoed throughout the room. With each word, a sense of urgency grew within me, as if we were drawing closer to something monumental. Suddenly, the house trembled, the walls vibrating with an unknown force. The candles flickered violently, and I felt an overwhelming presence enveloping us. Emiliano! Valentina screamed as the ground beneath us quaked. Hold on! I shouted, my eyes wide with fear. I reached for her, my hand clasping hers tightly. We have to keep going. Then, amidst the chaos, I heard a familiar whisper. Emiliano? The voice was softer than the storm around us, yet it cut through the noise like a blade. It was Donata. Donata! I called out, searching the shadows for her figure. We're here. We're trying to help. The energy in the room shifted again, and suddenly, the shadows coalesced into a form. A figure draped in mist appeared before us, my grandmother, her face serene yet sorrowful. You must be brave, my dear Emiliano, she urged, her voice echoing like a distant memory. The truth lies within. My heart raced as I looked at Valentina, whose eyes were wide with awe and fear. What do we do? She asked, gripping my hand tighter. Trust in the love we have for each other, Donata instructed. You must confront the truth, even if it shatters your world. Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed through the house, and I turned to see the front door burst open. The wind howled in, scattering the candles and plunging us into darkness. My heart sank as I realized that the ritual was being interrupted. Emiliano! Valentina cried, her voice strained as she struggled to stay grounded against the gale. We can't let him stop us. It's Roberto, I muttered, dread pooling in my stomach. He's here to sabotage everything. We had to finish the ritual to confront whatever darkness he brought with him. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my grandmother's love and the urgency of our mission. Hold on, Val. We can do this together. As I focused on the flickering remnants of the candles, a surge of determination filled me. I could not let our family's legacy be consumed by fear and greed. Together, Valentina and I began to chant again, louder this time, our voices rising above the howl of the wind. The shadows danced around us, but I could feel the presence of Donata urging us on. Together. I shouted, and I could see Valentina nodding, her resolve igniting. We will break this cycle. With that, we lifted our voices in unison, pouring every ounce of our strength into the words of the incantation, determined to face whatever lay ahead. As tensioned air in the room felt electric as we prepared for the ritual, a mix of fear and determination coursing through my veins. Valentina and I stood in the dimly lit living room, the scent of burning sage wafting through the air, mingling with the mustiness of old memories. I could feel the weight of our family's past pressing down on us, the shadows of our ancestors lurking just beyond the flickering candlelight. Emiliano, are you sure about this? Valentina asked, her voice barely above a whisper, her brow furrowed in concern. What if we're wrong? What if invoking the entity only makes things worse? I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. We have to do this, Val. Donata needs us. If we don't confront the truth, we'll never be free of this curse. My voice trembled slightly, betraying the doubt that gnawed at me. I glanced at the diary, its pages filled with cryptic writings that felt like keys to unlock the darkness enveloping our family. As we set up the ritual space, the door suddenly burst open, and there he was. Roberto, our uncle, the very embodiment of chaos that had descended upon our family. He strode in with an air of arrogance, his eyes gleaming with a mix of anger and desperation. What the hell do you two think you're doing? He demanded, his voice booming in the stillness of the room. We're doing what needs to be done, Roberto, I replied, my voice more defiant than I felt. You don't belong here. You're not part of this family anymore. Roberto laughed, a harsh, mocking sound. Oh, but I am, Emiliano. You see, I'm the only one who understands the power of our legacy. Donata was a fool to think she could protect any of you. All she did was bind us to something darker. She made a pact, and now it's time to reclaim what's rightfully mine. Valentina stepped forward, her eyes blazing with a mixture of fear and resolve. You don't know what you're talking about. Donata made that pact to protect us, not to give you power. You're just using her memory to manipulate us. Manipulate? Roberto spat, taking a step closer, his face twisted in anger. You think you know the truth? I lived in her shadow, always second to her. She kept secrets, and now I will expose them. The entity she summoned? It was never meant to protect. It was meant to control, and I intend to take that control back. I felt a shiver run down my spine. The weight of his words lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. You're lying, I said, though my voice wavered. Donata loved us. She would never. Love? Roberto interrupted, his voice dripping with scorn. She loved her secrets more than her family. And now, you two are foolish enough to follow in her footsteps, thinking you can break the curse she bound us with. But the truth is, the only way to free yourself is to make a sacrifice. What do you mean? Valentina asked, her voice trembling slightly. He leaned closer, eyes glinting with a sinister light. One of you must pay the price to break the pact. Sacrifice is the only way to sever the bond. It's written in that very diary you cling to. Donata's sacrifice was to protect you, but the cycle continues. You must decide who that sacrifice will be. Panic surged through me. The thought of losing Valentina, of even considering such a horrific choice, was unbearable. We won't do that, I insisted, my voice rising. We will find another way. We'll uncover the truth without bloodshed. Roberto chuckled darkly. You think you can defy the entity? It's already here, watching, waiting. You're too late, children. The darkness is hungry, and it won't be satisfied until it claims what it desires. Your grandmother's mistakes will be your undoing. As he spoke, the air in the room shifted, a chill creeping in, as if the shadows themselves were closing in on us. I glanced at Valentina, her face pale but resolute. Emiliano, she said quietly, we have to trust in the diary. There's got to be a way to confront this without sacrificing anyone. Then let's do it, I shouted, adrenaline pumping through my veins. We'll invoke the entity, but on our own terms. We'll challenge it to reveal the truth, to show us what Donata did." Valentina nodded, her determination shining through the fear. Together, we turned back to the ritual space, ready to face whatever darkness awaited us. But deep inside, I couldn't shake the dread that Roberto's words had planted in my mind. The thought that perhaps the entity had its own plans, and we were mere pawns in a game far more dangerous than we could comprehend. The atmosphere in the room thickened as the ritual reached its climax. I could feel the air crackling with energy, a palpable tension that made my skin crawl. Valentina stood beside me, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and determination. As we chanted the incantation from the diary, the shadows around us began to twist and writhe, forming a swirling vortex in the center of the room. Suddenly, a figure materialized before us. The entity was imposing, its presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. A voice boomed from the depths of the darkness, echoing off the walls of our ancestral home. "You dare to summon me?" it intoned, its voice resonating with an ancient power. "What is it you seek?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "We seek to break the pact made by my grandmother Donata. We want to free our family from this curse." The entity's gaze shifted towards Valentina, and I could see the flicker of recognition in its eyes. "You are brave, children of Donata. But do you know what you ask? The price of liberation is steep." Before I could respond, Roberto burst into the room, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "No, you can't do this," he shouted, advancing towards us. "You don't understand what you're meddling with. Donata's sacrifice was meant to protect us, not to be undone by foolishness." "Foolishness?" I retorted, feeling the anger rise within me. "You've been the source of our family's suffering, Roberto. You're the one who has hidden the truth all these years." The entity's form shimmered, and with a voice that echoed like thunder, it declared, "Roberto, you are the true sacrifice. The pact was forged to protect the Reyes bloodline, but your ambitions have tainted that protection. You sought power, and now it will consume you." Roberto's face paled, and for a moment I could see doubt creeping into his eyes. "No, this is not how it's supposed to be. Donata made the pact to save us all. I can still redeem myself." He was desperate, grasping at straws, but it was too late. Valentina stepped forward, her voice firm and unwavering. "You've manipulated us long enough, Roberto. You think you can just take what you want and leave the rest of us to suffer? This ends now." Roberto sneered, but I could see the fear lurking behind his bravado. "You don't know what you're doing. You think you can challenge me? I'm family. I deserve my place." The entity let out a low, rumbling laugh, a sound both chilling and exhilarating. "Family? You have betrayed the very essence of family for your greed. The legacy of Donata is not one of ambition, but of love and sacrifice. You will pay the price for your treachery." As the shadows closed in around him, Roberto's bravado melted away, replaced by sheer terror. "No, you can't do this to me. I'm not ready. But the entity was relentless. It surged forward, engulfing him in darkness. Roberto's screams echoed through the room, a cacophony of fear and regret. I closed my eyes, unable to watch as he was consumed by his own ambition, devoured by the very forces he had sought to control. When I opened my eyes again, the room was still. The oppressive energy that had filled the space began to dissipate, and the shadows retreated. In their place, a warm light filled the room, illuminating the corners where darkness had lingered. I felt a presence beside me, and I turned to see her. Donata, my grandmother, radiant and serene. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice soft and soothing. "You have freed us all." Tears welled in my eyes as I stepped forward, overwhelmed by emotion. "Grandma, we didn't know. We didn't understand what we were getting into." "You did what needed to be done, Emiliano," she replied, her gaze steady. "Love and forgiveness are the true legacies of our family. Remember that." Valentina, standing beside me, reached for my hand. "We'll honor your memory, Grandma. We'll make sure our family thrives, free from the burdens of the past." Donata smiled, a soft, knowing smile that filled my heart with warmth. "Live with love, and the darkness will never return. You have the strength to break the cycle." With that, she began to fade, her figure dissolving into a cascade of light. I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me as the shadows finally lifted from our home. As I looked into Valentina's eyes, I knew we had not just freed ourselves, but had also reclaimed our family's legacy. Together, we'll move forward, I said, squeezing Valentina's hand tightly. No more secrets, no more shadows, just us. And with that promise, we stepped into the light, ready to embrace a future unshackled from the past.